Hello grade 8s. Today's micro lesson is going to look at how to take a function rule, create some coordinates, and then draw a graph of the function. It's going to be a vital skill as you move forward from grade 8 to grade 12, and you may need to watch this video more than once. The first thing we need to do is we need to look at our function rule. And usually with the function rule, either we are going to choose some values that we are going to put into our function, or they're going to be given to us. In this case, remember, it means use these x values to get certain outputs. Now, before we go any further, it might be helpful to us to change our function rule just ever so slightly. It doesn't actually change the meaning of the function, but it means now we are working with x's and y's, and it might be a bit easier for you to get your coordinates. Now we want to put the x values into the table. Remember, we always want to do this in order. It can be biggest to smallest, or in this case, I'm going to do smallest to biggest. And for every x value, we are now going to need to determine the y value that corresponds with it. So let's get started. The function rule is y equals 2x minus 2. And we're going to put a value of minus 2 in order to get this missing value for y. We're going to see a lot of 2's in this expression once I substitute, but don't be confused. And be very, very careful as always with your integers, because our final result is going to be minus 6. Once I have the minus 6, I'm going to substitute it in and put it in here, and I now have a coordinate. And I can write that coordinate using the x value and the y value. And now what I need to do is repeat this process for all values of x. So I'm going to put minus 1 into the rule, then I'm going to put 0 into the rule, 1 into the rule, 2 into the rule, and record whatever I get out. Pause the video and see if you can get the correct outputs right now. If you did it correctly, when you put in minus 1, you should get minus 4. When you put in 0, you should get minus 2. 1, you should get 0. And 2, you should get 2. You'll also notice a pattern that's developing here where our common difference is plus 2. And you can start seeing the relationship between our table of values and the rules that describe that pattern. We are now going to use the information found in the first part of the problem, where we've determined the coordinates, and use these coordinates here to draw the graph of this particular function. The first thing that you need to do, as always, is to label your graph correctly. Make sure there are arrows on the end of your axes. And make sure you get your x's and y's in the correct place, as well as the pluses and minuses. After you've got the labels on the axes, then you can label the number system according to your needs. If we look at this particular problem, our biggest number is 6, so we only really need to number in 6 in every direction. And just to refresh how we get these numbers where they belong, I'm skipping a number just because I have some extra space. So I have one extra line here, but I go to 1, I skip 2, I skip 3, and that's how I'm getting the numbers in progression that way. At the middle is the origin, 0, and from there I can count in any direction, and I just need to make sure that each time, if I'm skipping a line, I do it everywhere. It is now time to plot the coordinates and draw this line. If it's confusing still to look at a table, you're welcome to write coordinate pairs. But we actually already have the coordinates here for us, and soon you'll start seeing them clearly. Basically, the coordinates have already been written in the table. They just don't have the brackets or the semicolon in the middle. Pause the video now, plot the 5 points, and then join them using a ruler. And we'll see if you get the same result I do. As a reminder, x comes first, and we need to go to where x is minus 2. From there, without moving on the x line, we're going to go all the way down to where y is -6. And we're going to draw a point. Just to recap, our first coordinate is -2, -6. So we go to -2 in the x direction and then down from there to -6 in the y direction. And that's how we get that first coordinate. From there, we can draw the remaining coordinates. We have -1, -4, which will appear here. And then the next one, which is still a little bit difficult, I'm sure, we have 0, which means we don't go anywhere, don't go left or right, or 0, and we go down to -2. Next, we're going to go 1 in the x direction, but then it says 0, so we don't go up and we don't go down. We're going to stay right here. And finally, we're going to go to where x is 2 and y is also 2. Now, here's the important part. We now can see that these dots are in a line, and because we're actually supposed to draw the function of all of the possibilities, we are now going to connect all of these dots, making a straight line. You'll use your ruler, and it's very important that you go all the way from one side of the graph to the other. It's also vitally important that you put arrows onto this graph to indicate that this function will go on forever in both directions. To recap, in order to draw a line or linear function, you first need to make a table of values, use inputs to create some outputs, and then when you have ordered pairs or coordinates, you then plot the coordinates onto the Cartesian coordinate system, then join the dots, and that's all there is to it. You probably will need to practice a few times. Make sure you do the revision worksheets as well. Again, this is a vital skill that you're going to be using all the way through grade 12. Good luck.